Good evening, heroes and heroines, and welcome to Practising Programming in C, episode 206, entitled Cinera, Database V5, All the Projects Still Matter, where we're going to be trying to get this binary search for metadata landmark function to work properly. I think the very first thing I can do actually is just do this. Because I think that should be okay. So that'll marry up with other places where we're testing against the pointers of these guys. I wonder if we can basically relieve this function here of calling binary search for metadata landmark and instead take some stuff. You can see here we've got a binary search for metadata landmark call here prior to a process pre landmarks and process next. Same deal here, right? Binary search, and again these add landmarks. So this is doing it in both cases, but both of them are testing if the existing landmark count is greater than this. And that's the only places. And then after this we'll show the next process next, which itself is going to call binary search for metadata landmark. What I'm kind of wondering is having located the target, right? So having performed binary search metadata landmark here and located our target, I think we should reasonably be able to assume that the well, actually, there's a couple of components to this. I think we need to, first of all, before doing binary search metadata landmark, I think we need to have a function that basically says somewhere, I don't know where it'll be, could be anywhere, but basically the function is basically going to get the range of the landmarks that are appropriate for the current project, right? The reason for that is I do think that we want to group the landmarks by the project in which they occur. And then I think also, if you've found that entire range, then when you come to this process brief landmarks, the process brief landmarks can take the entire range and this target, right? So basically, when I'm talking about the landmark range for the entire project, it's like this is going to be a subset of all the landmarks. It's going to be somewhere. And this target, this landmark range here, is itself going to be a subset of the subset, right? What I'm suggesting is that we pass that whole thing, pass both of those things to process brief landmarks and process next. And you basically say, of this subset, of the project subset, the larger one, are there like any landmarks prior to this target which I think we're also going to have to sort of say if the entry count isn't -1, right? So we can guard against that one. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could just also skip past the -1 one if you need to. In fact, that's probably what we would need to do. Isn't it? Let me just have a quick gander. Update landmarks for neighbourhoods. Yeah, so there's delete landmarks for search. Update landmarks for search. What does this guy call? Does it ever call add landmark? Yeah, you see, I don't think it does call add landmark, does it? Yeah, which is fine. That's exactly what I would hope. Because this person can just do its own thing and then write out the rest of the file. Doesn't call, does it? Yeah, it totally doesn't. It's only in the update landmarks for neighbourhood that even cares about the that even calls the add landmarks. So yeah, I mean, we could conceivably also say that in getting our subset of things from this thing, in getting the VM project subset, we just sort of say that the starting point just is past the ones that are equal to -1, if that makes sense. So let's just start off by doing this. We want to have a landmark range. And it's basically we have get functions, get neighborhood. Just trying to think of it in terms of just naming this thing, get neighborhood. I suppose, yeah, it's get asset. What does that return? Yeah, that returns a thing. That's the thing, get a principal complex, because usually when I do these get functions, it means that it's going to return a pointer to whatever we're talking about getting. Although, I mean, we've got this get first substring. I suppose it does return a pointer, actually, doesn't it? It does return that. So determine project landmark range. Right. It's probably going to take the same stuff as the binary search, isn't it? So we need to take the asset. It needs to take the current project index. And that's it, isn't it? Yeah, it is it. And then all we're doing is we're saying and also, let me just see what to do. Actually, we should do this in a binary. Do it. But for now, let's just screw it. Um, yeah, for the landmark count, we basically want to be saying um, product indices differ, isn't it? Okay, so we need to actually get the first at landmark. So maybe um, yeah, I guess actually if products if they match, then we say that the results first, is it? Yeah. Right. And then, well, it's not actually that. It's just while the I guess the downside of this actually is that it's always going to be, if it determines that this could conceivably get all the way through the landmarks, couldn't it? It could get all the way through without finding a matching person. I suppose what you could actually do we could do an if products differ. So we need to, when we enter this whole situation, when there's no, when the landmark count is 0, we're not going to get into this situation. Also, if they match, then we actually need to then go in and say, while the entry count is -1. Oh, we need to double break, don't we? Yeah, I guess in that case we just break and we just do it out here, actually. Do we have J? No. So I guess it's that, isn't it? Kind of. So that's going to skip us past that. I think that's reasonable. But like I say, also, I think I should probably use the actual thing that we've got set up for this, which is page type search. Now it's this test that we want to be talking about here. I think this one down here is perfectly fine to just get us out of that situation. You know, get us to the end of the dudes. But this one here, we need to be a bit smarter. We need to somehow get it to return something a bit more sensible. Or set something a bit more sensible. So let's say that we've got some incoming stuff. So let's say that we've got 1 stored, but we want to talk about 1 0, which is exactly the case that we actually have got. So you got 1 stored. I think basically it's like, do you just say that if the project indices differ and it's greater than 0, then you continue to go. It probably just does that, isn't it? Which way around is it? Probably. Might actually like to do it that way around as well, actually, because I is the stable one. This period is the one that differs. So yeah, if that or I suppose, so you're going over the things. If the current one should occur before this one, actually maybe. So it'd be like that. Then we go into this. Yeah, I suppose actually this could end up not doing what we want, couldn't it? I think actually what we want to do is, if it doesn't differ, then we say that first is equal to I, and then so that'll at least set it to something, definitely. And then I think you just actually, here, you just increment the result dot first, don't you? And then if it's ever not search, you break and break, and then Bob's your uncle, right? And then down here, if it ever differs, you just come in here and do this stuff. Set that, and then returns the result. So yeah, I think that's okay. Oh, also let's leave that, do it in binary search fashion. So let's call that first, determine project landmarks range. And then, having determined that range, let's pass that to this guy. And then I think also, having determined the range could be 0, 0, couldn't it, actually? So there might be nothing to match on. Well, actually, I suppose it's kind of this, isn't it? It's not exactly existing landmark count, it's actually the project range dot count, isn't it? Oh, mind you, if that happens, I guess we need to somehow set this target, don't we? I think we could set that to be the project range, couldn't we? Right. And then the existing landmark count is irrelevant because that's it's just taken straight out of the range, right? I mean, suppose actually we don't need this index after all, because if we've got in here at all, I mean, I guess we can still make it take it, but if we've got in here at all, basically what I was going to say was, then when we're checking that project range, I mean, the landmark that we're checking, like the first landmark that we're going to be looking at, will have the that index stored in it. Let's do that. And then these dudes down here, what it's kind of suggesting is these guys won't do binary search from message to landmark. These are going to be taking the project range and this target, right? Why exactly are they taking this target as a by value, I wonder, by address? Okay, so it doesn't really need to modify anything, so it doesn't necessarily need to take that by address. Yeah, we do need to be able to check the current target against the project range, so that we can actually say, well, hang on a minute. If you know that you've got an n prev, then you should know that there will be oh, actually no you don't actually. You don't know necessarily. what is this running index? So that's getting us through the overall landmark count. I think that's reasonable to do still. Yeah, what I'm basically driving at here is our actual first landmark should be the project range. Right. Is that true? Well, maybe. So the idea is it's going to write up to the former target. So the first landmark does actually have to be the first landmark of the actual assets. So we can't quite do this exactly. And now that I think about it, actually, that's perfectly fine to leave it where it is, isn't it? This function should be called go get index range, yeah. Approach index, yeah. Which way does this go from? It decrements the landmark index. Well, it's greater than 0. What's the result? So it seems like it can go both ways, doesn't it? Just basically trying to work its way back to the first one. And then it gets the range length from there. So yeah, we can just pass it whatever we want, whatever we like. No, so we haven't got the landmark count anymore. I think we can use the project range length though, can't we? Expert to a index. Oh, right. Fine. So, what have we got going on here? So it is the end, the asset, project range, current target. Right, we need to change this to actually follow the same sort of a thing as the add one, don't we? Did we not change binary search for metadata landmark? Anyway, process brief. So it takes the asset, the project range, and the current target. Do we have that? Deletion target. Binary search. Yeah, so we need to change this, don't we? Or do we? Did we change it? Supposed to take the project index. Did we change it? We didn't, did we? So are we passing the stuff that we want to be passing in this case, actually? Yeah, I think we are. So we just need to change the call, don't we? To take the stuff that we're actually saying that we should be taking. So that's a project range, index range. What is it? Landmark range. And the index. Okay. So here we go, we've got the asset. The first thing we need to do is, I think we just need, now that we've got our range, we don't need to do any of this garbage. Well, I mean, we can check if the project range length is greater than thingy. But beyond that, I think we can get our first landmark, and then we can set lower to be the project range bottom. We don't need to check this anymore because we're actually passing the actual indices that we need. Oh, right, we just don't need to do any of this, I don't think. Yeah, I guess if the project range length is 0, greater than 0, then we're sorted, I think. We can actually get into this in some way. Yeah, I think this is fine. think that's more like what you want to have happen. I guess actually this result range should be, it just should start as a project range, because then it could plausibly return that whole range. Then we should just have the calls, shouldn't we? So product indices match. Product index. First landmark. Product. Well, again, we don't need to do this check, do we? Because we know that we're always operating within the bounds of our remit, aren't we? That only needs to happen. And then the get index range does have to change, doesn't it? Unless we changed it. Yeah. This is supposed to be taking a first landmark, product index, entry index lower, and a landmark count. What have we got again? Project range. Oops. Right. Yeah, so again, remember what I was saying about this being able to derive the product index from the actual first landmark? Yeah, so the landmark, sorry, the first landmark here is the first overall. It's not the first. Of the project. So fine. Let's just suck it and see. Slight tautology, but whatever. What's it supposed to take? Project range energy index. Asset project range energy index. So snap checks them into HTML. So we've got an asset. Oh, this is an interesting one, isn't it, actually? because in order to snipe the checksum into HTML, you need to loop over all the projects, don't you? Let's just. Can I do that? I set project range and entry index. And that's just a big fat to do there. Yeah. Oh, mind you, for this one in particular. Okay, so I might actually expand the expand the bounds of the thingamajig, the project range, to say when we determine it. Sorry, no, when we determine it, we actually don't skip the page searches. Because if we do, then this is going to not be able to find the page type search in that project range. So I think this is the same deal as the prev thing, isn't it? Which I believe we've done, yeah. So this person should try and determine that thing, shouldn't it? Well, it doesn't actually. It just does this, doesn't it? If the it does this, not a target. I think clearly it doesn't do. We shouldn't be doing binary search. I'm now live, am I? Had I gone offline? No drop frames. Don't necessarily need my camera, my microphone in full view. Maybe that was a Oh, actually, uh, yeah, Mibler's now live. Blimey, now Rossman Group's now live. 4 of us are alive at the moment. There's a lot of there's a lot of living happening. Yeah, Mibler's no longer live apparently, as of this time. Okay, fine. So I think Project Raider current target replace the existing landmark counts. I think. By the way, Kate Bush's aerial has just begun. Now that I think about it, it will need the existing landmark counts. Because this guide does need to actually write out every last one of them. But it only needs to do this procedure. For the projects for the landmarks in the current project. So yeah. So I think if the existing if the running index is less than the project range start plus the project range length, right? All the time we're still going to be incrementing the project range, are we not? Yeah, in here we do, sorry, the running index. So we set that to be this. The first landmark plus the running index. And strangely enough, I think that this first landmark plus the running index should be actually the correct. It should be positioned after the, after a previously processed one. So I think right now we're entitled, rather than having to do this here, this prior is equal to first landmark minus net minus 1. I don't think we need to do a plus 1 here, because I think this is going to be the right place. Right. So really what we're doing is going to get index range, first landmark, the first landmark project, actually. Sorry, hang on a minute. Okay, so we've got next, the landmark is equal to the first landmark plus the, yeah, okay. We are using landmark. So let's say that we're using the landmarks project and the landmarks entry index. I mean, pretty bizarre that you're passing all this garbage separately. But I think now we just pass the actual running index here, don't we? And then we don't have a landmark, so I think we've got our latter there. First number, I think we're entitled, now that we've actually got the prior out, sorry, the latter out, to pass to get index range, I reckon we can just do this, I reckon. Probably the better way of doing it. Right, so that's going to handle all the people within this range, right? But then what we need to do is if at this point the running index is less than the existing landmark count, then what you do is you write out the rest of the landmarks so you need to position the guy there, don't you? mean, it's basically that. Isn't it? Where's the first landmark? The first landmark is initialized up there. Alright, so we've got all the way down here. We've been incrementing the running index all the time. So we do that, and then what you do is you write out from the landmark the size of a landmark by the number of existing landmark. Take away the running index. Yeah, the project range. Well, so I actually need to take too many options of function. So it takes the project range, the current project range, and the entry index is what it's supposed to be taking. And then this guy should be taking the asset and then the project range and the current target. Which is the running index, isn't it? It's expecting a landmark range, is it? Existing landmark count as well, okay. Now this guy is supposed to be taking project range, current target, this target, oh, this target is over there already, so then is that it? Yeah, so again, project index, sorry, project range, latter range, this target maybe. So yeah, we haven't determined this yet, have we? We haven't pulled the stuff out for this function. So this needs to determine that thing. Oh, it's just the page type now. Yeah. Same deal. You need to determine that range. Let's run it. See if we've screwed up. I did it the wrong way around actually, sadly, but we should be able to find if it's busted. Right, so we just wrote code for like an hour. Didn't test it at all. We're not doing the sniping. That's what we're not doing. Well, let's just try it the other way around. Because it was the actual other way around that was causing us the problem. Well, I mean, technically, both of them were causing the problem. But we need to make sure that we can actually handle both ways. There's all hit code up there, all way down here. And then we've got our assets down here. And yeah, you can see that it just looks pretty goddamn sweet to me. Yeah, it's kind of nice that you can see within the Cinera search, you can see a couple of them. There's a couple of these -1s. It's pretty cool to see. Basically what this means is, here's the file name, 3 is the type, so it's a JS file, this is the hash, and this is the number of entries, number of landmarks, and then we've got generation 1, entry 0, sorry, project generation 1, project entry 0, project index 0, and then entry index -1. And then we've got, oh, the position, that's the position. And then we've got project generation 1, project index 1, entry index -1, and then the position. So yeah, this is just looking beautiful. What we need to do now is actually get the sniping to work. Snipe checks them into HTML. So we've got a couple of snipe functions, haven't we? Snipe check, this is called a snipe check and close file. So this is where we were saying they would call it, yeah. Almost definitely redo this. Okay. So this is talking about running landmark indices as well. I see. So we've got the index going through the search page, and then we've got going through the player pages. So yeah, it's just for each asset, isn't it? Right, so we've been passed an asset in here, and we've got this checksum here. HTML is determined from these guys. So I think actually, rather than snipe checksum and close file being responsible for using locate functions, if I'm not mistaken, I think that our outer loop that is looping over the dudes has to be doing that. True. Research visions buffer. Oh, that was another thing, wasn't it? It was like, because this thing uses the one of these guys. Yeah, it's using the current project search location. It sort of seems like what you want to do is, when you come in here, you just save off the current project. Do your business, just switching between the current projects, and then once you're done, just set the current project back to what it was to begin with. And then if I'm not very much mistaken, it should just work, shouldn't it? For the first asset landmark. The get index range lengths, I mean, they are getting built, aren't they? Maybe we just didn't change them. I think the idea of this length, by the way, is to, you can see that for each entry, we only call read player page into buffer once. And running landmark index. I think this guy must actually increment the running landmark index by that length. It goes through them all. Yeah, it essentially increments the running landmark index. So basically the idea behind this is that it only reads that file once. It doesn't have to keep reading the file in for each landmark. So yeah, maybe we've got to split this up into a couple. Basically what's running through my mind here is we've got the landmarks grouped by project. Meaning that essentially the search pages are not grouped together. The search pages, the landmarks for the search page are going to be interspersed throughout the list of landmarks. It sort of seems really more like what you wanted to be saying is just go over the landmarks, right? And rather than bothering with doing this separately, right? Rather than doing it separately, you're just guided by the landmarks. So the landmarks tell you which project to get, right? So you look at the first landmark. You look at the first landmark, and you say, I think the only reason, right, that I actually split this out was to just save you having to do that check. It was to save you having to check if the entry index is -1 for each landmark. I think that was all it was, really. But it's just not such a big deal now when you're talking about the possibility of having to locate different projects in the database. That's a much bigger thing to do. So I'm inclined to say rather than bothering with any of this hogwash, forget about the project range, forget about this. We do need do we even need the running? We probably don't even need the running index count actually, because it's just one loop. Right, we can scrap that. And we could just do the one loop. It's just like for int I equals 0. I is less than the asset landmark count, or whatever it is. Plus I. I suppose actually, maybe you don't do the plus I, but you pass I into here. To actually perform the increments. Because this guy gets the length. And it could reasonably, similarly, well, it would be the search range, wouldn't it? Just snap check some close file. Range length. That length, yeah. This was determined by this call. So you can see that locate entry happens. And this actually is able to, I assume, correctly locate this entry of this project in the database. Yeah, let's do this. Screw that. Screw this, and all of this garbage. We do need that, actually. We do need the research page into buffer. And also screw this. We don't bother to determine the project landmarks range, because we're literally just going to be guided by the landmarks. Right. Where's that guy? Do we have that somewhere? Page type search. I guess for each landmark, also, isn't it? Because of how these guys work, we need to set the current project. Is that what you do? Hang on a second. Oh no, it's not working. This is actually the this is the thing that you need to revert it to. So it's like the existing project coverage. Right, and then after you've done all your business, you set it back. Now we've got a return RC failure here. This could actually just... It could just set the return code. Right, let's just do that. Let's just say it defaults to success. Right. So that'll break us out of this loop. Set the comp project back to the existing project account and on we go. I mean, got rid of the existing project. Bit of a weird word name for it, but who cares? And then what you want to say is if the current project's index does not equal the then you need to say current project get project the landmark. I think. Is there anything more to it? locate project, I think, actually, is what you're talking about doing. Is that right? Now, the thing is, that ain't gonna work, is it? Getting getting project by its actual thing. I mean, kind of cheesy, but you basically need to be able to sort of say, we need the opposite way around of doing this. Right, you need a way to sort of say, locate project, and then set the current project based on that index. Is that even the right value? I mean, it's not in here, is it, though? What is it? Setting the result project. So it's a header project. Is it? Oh, hold on a second. The index. So we need to be saying current project index. I mean, so hang on a minute. This is going to be returning a database. I think in a database, which still isn't good enough for us. I think basically we want essentially this function, these two functions that operate on the config rather than the database, I think is what we want. It's a bit unfortunate, but I think that's the only way we can do it, really. Unless this thinks it needs to be working on the current project search location. Could we not make it take a pointer to the DB project header? Right, then this guy could end up with all that information. Is that the correct way of doing it? Maybe it's not actually. only because the database is kind of, I don't know, it's supposed to be more like the destination thing, like you're not supposed to be. Using it to source information per se. I suppose that's not really necessarily true. What else do we need here actually? To do the determining of project extents is to do with the database. That's it. Yeah, it's all DBs. This is DB. That's all DB. What is this? Is it DB? And that's the very thing that you need to be talking about. Although, I mean, not going to be strictly to speak. I said, didn't I? We're not actually going to be talking about that necessarily. We're not going to be talking about determining the length because we're just going through all the landmarks. But this guide, getting this range length, we are going to use, and this is using the DB. I mean, that does kind of suggest, doesn't it, that we just change those functions to operate on the thing that's in the DB. And then we're sorted, really, because we have got that information. I mean, when I say we've got that information, we can actually do the get. The current project is not a current project anymore, but it's going to be the header, right, into the DB for the project. I suppose, yeah, I mean, snipe, yeah, because all we're doing here, right, we're just sniping, aren't we, into the HTML file, so it's not even like we're not even writing into the database, actually. So those pointers are always going to be in the same place, right? I mean, that happens out here. Sniping doesn't care. Internally. Not exactly sure why this is writing though, to be honest. Oh, it's a checksum, isn't it? Yeah, the asset hash. That's all it is. It's just the hash that it needs to write into the database. And the neighborhood itself, as we've already established, contains the pointer into the database. And whenever we're cycling that thingy, we're always making sure that we're fixing up these pointers. But again, that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant to what we're trying to do anyway, because if we're in the snipe projects, the sniping function, yeah, we're not even touching it anyway. So even if a previous person had tried to set it in the neighbourhood, we have nothing to be concerned about. We can just say this basically. Right. And then you can just say if that is not the, well, if that index, isn't it? Oh, actually, mind you. Yeah, this doesn't actually store it, does it? Now that I think about it. It doesn't store its index. I'm just thinking of how you actually how you do this check here. Maybe you can't. In other words, you just have to get the pointer every time. I suppose you can actually check against the previous landmark, can't you? You can just sort of say if it differs, if the current one differs from the previous one. Right, so as you go through the landmarks, you just know whether you need to get the project or not. Yeah, that's what you can do actually. And then, like I say, we need to change the read search page into buffer function to take that actual P. Right. And will this need to be wrapped up? Yes, it will. Well, hold on. Where was it? Oh, it's there. It was expecting the search location to be a string. Can I just do this? Right, these guys don't need to be pointers, do they? This current project is going to have to take the DB project header . Now you can see the KND reference anyway. this guy is going to have to take that DB header too, isn't it? Because we've got that player location. So yeah, this current project search location, it's got to be a string. So it's basically like a wrap 0i. What did we say it was? The search location. Hang on. Yeah. Yeah, none of these guys are even actually testing. They didn't need to test. Yeah, I suppose actually this guy was testing, wasn't it? That might have been a bit of an unfortunate thing. Basically, the only difference would be that we'd have to wrap these up separately. So, yeah, should we do that? Let's do it. Because basically this call here, passing 0, ain't going to fly. I think it might be nice if we can actually do that sort of stuff. Who was dereferencing? Oh, it was this guy was dereferencing, wasn't it? There's that current project base directory again. Yeah, that could just be an inline wrap zeroed thing. Where's he got that from? Oh, this. I think this needs to be a wrap 0i, by the way. Gosh. Yeah, this is where we need to do this thingamajig separately. Just give us one moment. Just realised that this this passing of the entire thing, the entire header project, might actually come back to haunt us. Because there might be places where we have to, I mean, especially for this read search pigeons buffer, or, well, I mean, maybe this one. Yeah, I mean, the construct directory path and construct HTML path, maybe places where the DB isn't even available to us. But now that I think about it, construct HTML index file path, that's definitely going to be, surely it's going to be available for that. Construct directory path. I mean, maybe it might not be available for that, but we'll see. Oh, it is a P as well. Same principle here. So yeah, we don't have such a thing. This is where we're up to. Yeah, it's basically this, isn't it? So we've got that landmark out. The only difference is that we're reading the search page into the buffer. And yeah, that's kind of interesting, isn't it, when you think about it? Literally, the only difference between these two dudes is going to be the file in which we're reading into. Buffer. Isn't it? Right? Unless I'm much mistaken. Because these guys are just now looking at the right, looking exactly the same. I suppose entry, yeah, locate entry needs to be locating that entry. Current project ain't what we want to be talking about. We want to be talking about this landmarks index. I think it's this, isn't it? I think they're supposed to take P, is it? HTML file first landmark. Running landmark index supposed to an int64. this wanted to do? The search location. So how about, rather than using the construct HTML index file path, how about using the construct, oh right, it's read. So what was it also doing? It's removing. Okay, fine. Oh, we could at least construct the directory path. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's a bit cheesy, but so be it. What's it need to take? Player location. Okay. Now think about it, actually, these aren't strings, are they? We need to wrap them up, don't we? Like, how on earth is that getting through? It might not be, actually. Expected a something. So expected a header. Hang on a second. So that is okay. Yeah, we're wrap zeroing this for this guy up here. And this. Okay, I think these bits are okay. But this bit here isn't. Just wanted to think. So let's make this guy. This needs to take the DB header, doesn't it? Actually, this can just be wrap zeroed directly, can't it? Nope. I got it. Does that need the N for anything more? Yeah, it does for the update landmarks. I think we did. Oh. Does this need the N for anything? Yes. Ah. This is interesting, isn't it? The old player directory is derived from the directory, the database. But the new player directory is correctly derived from the current project. Well, looping over all the projects, assuming that. Yeah, so we need you to do that. Same down here. But I think by the time we get down to deleted DB entries, I think we should have actually updated the database to be pointed to the correct directories. So I assume that everything will just continue to work. Let's try it. We're not doing the sniping, by the way. Actually, it's code, isn't it? Yeah, everything looks to be okay. I don't think the real thing would want to print all this stuff out. I mean, this is obviously test stuff. Yeah, as far as I can see, that's working okay. So now if we go into the snipe thingies, well, it's this actual function, isn't it? This is where we're up to. And now that we're actually operating on the DB header project in the read player page into buffer call, I think we're okay, aren't we? That should just all work. So the existing project is the current. We don't need to store that because that ain't getting touched. Yeah, and since nothing needs to happen now. I mean, yeah, we can just keep the return at the end. And also, let's just call that the result. So it's going to go over all of the landmarks. First of all, locating the project, which is wasteful because we might be talking about the same project. but that's fine. We can just we can figure out how to check that in a second. If the player page is type search, then we do this. They read the search page into buffer, get the index range length, and this is the same deal using the landmark entry index as this guy down here. Snipe checks from close file. So these two lines here are exactly the same as these two lines here. Well, I mean, and this actually, initializing this HTML. Yeah, literally the only difference would be should we just do it? Let's just compress these guys out. Yeah, you don't even need to care about that, because he's literally only caring about reading into the HTML. That's all you need, isn't it? Snipe checksum. Yeah. You don't care about anything other than the HTML file. So that's kind of interesting. So should we just see if this works? Well, actually, let's do it on code, because we've got the code already open. Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, snipe checksum. Yeah, I think currently, well, mind you, we're going to be talking about changing the topics underscore thing. Tell you what, this is going to be interesting to see what happens actually. Let's leave it doing it as Ray. Right. And we're going to change code. But code isn't going to get... Yeah, I mean, it's kind of will scramble us up because we're not going to update code. But I think what should happen is that we will actually manage to detect that the topics, the Cinera underscore topics.css file should change, triggering this snipe of the new checksum. Well, it didn't. Oh, and it won't, because actually, yeah, we weren't to trigger the change. Right, this needs to get rebuilt in order to actually make the that CSS file change. So yeah, there is that. Try again. Okay, cool. Read of size 1 in a wrapped UI and generate search page. So apparently we did update a checksum of that. Generate search page didn't like something though. In 8685. Oh, it's a heat view set to 3. That's what it is. Right, so somebody's not setting that. Somebody's not fixing that up, is it? Are they? They're not fixing up the end project pointer. Right, that's the problem. That's unfortunate. Which call was it? Which generate search page call was it? Is the one on 9058, so it's this one here. So we update the deferred asset checksums. I mean, we do update the neighborhood pointers up here. There's a cycle signposted file. Oh, does this not have the neighborhood? So it can't actually update the things. That could be the problem, couldn't it? This doesn't have it either. So update asset happens inside that function. And then and then this happens. So Oh, sorry. Update deferred asset checksum. So we need to do an update to neighborhood pointers after that, I reckon. Yeah, because neither of those have that available to them. I'm not sure if there would have been any deferred asset checksum updates there though, but maybe there was. And now it's fine. So yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of just works, I suppose. And also you should be able to see in both of the dudes, this is my site, this is the live site. Where is this going to be? So there's hero code and Ray. I mean, obviously this one is going to get the checksum correctly updated. So we're talking about Cinera topic CSS. It should end in 144, and that surely ends in 144. So this is the code project. If we go back and look at the Ray one, I mean, I think it will contain a topics.css anyway. Could be mistaken. And now this now this is correctly 1442, right? And yet it was only it was only building. It was only monitoring hero. I can just prove that this is working if I just now call it Bosch. Update the checksum again. So now it's going to end in B34 in the Ray project. While this thing that it's actually building is hero code. You know, it reinserted hero code 37, but it correctly managed to update Ray. B34, yeah. So the search page is getting it correctly as well. So yeah, right. I'm going to call that success. An unmitigated success. Jolly Code is going to have it as well. B34, yeah. And also when we looked at the actual, did we look at the file? That's fine. And that looks fine too. So yeah, I think that's just nailed it. So basically the principles that we established today were in the binary search. Before doing the actual binary search for the landmarks, we first of all constrained our search to just the ones that, to just the landmarks that are contained within a particular project. And then having done that, we just passed through that constrained bit to the previous thing. I suppose one thing we're not testing quite at the moment is fixing up of the next people. So, for example, right, if we just rename this title Single Buffer Sound Streaming Fund, that does reinsert. It does rename this. Now the question is, does this manage to correctly link back to it? And it does seem to do, yeah. So yeah, I guess that's still fine. Let's also just try. Did I try Bush? Yeah, I must have done. So what have we got? Nocturne. So it's updated checksum apparently. Is this still correct? Yeah. You get 7AF. 6AF. Is it 6AF? Yeah, 6AF. So yeah, I suppose that's just all perfectly right. Basically the test there was making sure that the next people were getting correctly fixed up. I suppose actually another thing that we haven't actually tested is inserting a project. Well, actually, now think about it. Inserting these guys has worked, hasn't it? Because we've inserted a bunch of these before. Like all of these are before 527. 527 you'll probably see further up. You know, unfortunately, inserted and appended are the same number of characters. But yeah, 527 is up here. Right, so we will have inserted these and then fixed up the indices of the following people after it. So that's working as well. So yeah. Put that back. Still got a change in there. So there's Bush. So yeah, sure that is saved. Yeah, that's all working. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, now we're in a position to do what we were hoping to do a couple of days ago, which was basically, if we can get there, it's essentially looping over all of the projects, adding all the projects, down to here. And then we're still going to have only one thing that we're monitoring, but we will need to figure out how to actually monitor the files of multiple projects, basically. Because we should see with the monitor directory, monitor file system, this should be using the current thing, or the watch handles, I guess, actually. I think what we're not doing is initializing watch handles for them all. Although, now that I think about it, actually, this is going to be part of the loop, isn't it? So we've got current project there, which, as I say, we are going to be looping over the current projects. Does this care about the current handle, the current thing? Yeah, this doesn't actually seem to be caring about the current project, does it? Although it's possible that resolve path and people do. yeah, it's possible that there is something, I suppose, although I can't see it. So maybe it just isn't an issue. File. Construct asset path. Does this actually do? This is working off the main config actually. So yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, the assets are actually from the main config. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting actually. I mean, this is going to be something that we're going to be doing in the next episodes. It's not something to go into now, but I mean, basically, the general idea is that we're going to be looping over all of the projects, doing whatever stuff we need to do, and then getting monitor file system to actually work with all the stuff, all the handles that we pushed on, which might actually just be automatically working, honestly. I'm not sure. I mean, we'll see. It's possible that the watch handle will need a pointer to some stuff, to like the current project that it's intended to be talking about. But yeah, that's the idea. So yeah, thanks very much, Hilton Showens, for being here. We've done a couple of hours, almost 3. It's been a very productive one. We have actually got the stuff doing what we wanted to be doing. So yeah, thanks very much, and until next time, farewell for now.